Hello, and welcome to this eCampus News webcast. My name is Andrew Barber, and I'm a senior contributing editor with eCampus News, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's presentation. It's sponsored by Dell and asks the question, are you considering a student mobility initiative on your campus? It's part one of a two-part webinar series that will conclude on July 21st, and I hope you can all join us for the follow-up. Before I introduce our speakers, I want to take a couple of minutes to cover some housekeeping items. First, you should all know that today's event will be recorded. You'll receive an email from us in a couple of days that will contain a link to the recorded event, and you'll also be able to download a PDF of the presentation from that same email. And secondly, please ask questions. At any time during this presentation, if you have a question, just type it into the Q&A box on your console and hit the submit button. And you don't have to wait until the end of the presentation to ask your questions. You can ask them at any time, but I hope we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end when our speakers can answer your questions. And we also have a chat function, which is, you can launch that from the brown group chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Please use the chat to talk among yourselves or to contact me or the eCampus News team with any technical issues or concerns, but please don't use the chat function to ask the speakers questions. They're just not going to have time to monitor the chat. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A panel instead. Now, today we're going to focus on the mobility initiative undertaken by Southern Illinois University. SIUC ranks as a top research institution in the U.S., but it also serves as an access university. Of its 20,000 students, 47% are first-generation college attendees, and 35% of entering students are minorities. And to tell us about SIUC's mobility initiative, we have two speakers today. Melinda Hubbs serves as the Education Change Management Coordinator in the IT department. Melinda develops creative initiatives and innovative solutions to help the IT group serve users and campus stakeholders. Much of her work involves developing relationships between IT and the campus community it serves. She's managed the SIUC mobile dog tablet demonstration since 2013. And our second speaker, Chris Guy, is the Director of Technology Services and Project Management at SIU. Chris has been part of the Mobile Tablet Initiative since inception in 2012. And prior to becoming director, he was the project manager responsible for the rollout. He continues to lead the project along with his other responsibilities. Now, at the end of Chris and Melinda's presentation, we'll also be hearing from John Phillips, who's director for Dell's Global Education Practice. Welcome, Melinda and Chris. It's an honor to have you here today. Chris, why don't you get us started by explaining a little about the scope of the initiative at SIUC?
Thanks, Andrew, and hello, everyone.
Yeah, hello.
So a mobile technology initiative can mean many different things to different people depending on what your project is. And before I kind of get started in the scope, I want to make an important point about the second slide that Andrew told you about. 47% of our students are first-generation college students, and that may sound kind of like a benign statistic, but what it means is that nearly half of our students show up to college with no idea what to expect. They didn't have parents or grandparents or other close relatives to let them know, oh, you need to plan on spending $500 on your textbooks, or that financial aid doesn't cover, or what it's like to live in the dorms. And also, over half of our students are Pell eligible, which means, of course, that we have a lot of students that just cannot afford the latest technology. Some of our students may show up with the latest Dell laptop or MacBook, but most of them do not. So, scope of our efforts. Back in the spring semester of 2013, we did a pilot of 300 Dell Latitude 10 tablets. That was spread over several different grades and several different courses, just to kind of get our feet wet in it and what we were looking at. Then in that fall of 2013, we distributed about 3,000 of them to all of our incoming freshmen and freshman transfers. If they had less than 26 credit hours, we gave them a tablet. So in the last 2 years, we've distributed over 6,000, nearly 7,000, and we plan on distributing an additional 4,200 tablets this fall, 2015. And that number is greater than the prior years because this year we're actually going to give them to all transfer students. We're assuming that most transfers are coming in as juniors, and that will allow the first ones to catch up. Okay, some of the reasons why we made our decision. Prior to 2013, we had experienced several years of declining enrollment. So we were really looking for ways to boost our enrollment, to attract students. And our retention was actually in the low 60% from freshman to sophomore year. Additionally, about 40% of our students never purchased the required textbooks. They were kind of hoping to share with a friend or go to the library and make copies, that sort of thing. And based on our student demographic that I've already talked about, we knew that a lot of students were showing up without the technology that they needed to succeed. So these were several of the things that led to our decision.
And Chris, we still find that today, right? That students are still not showing up with the technology they need, and they still don't get their textbooks.
Absolutely. Our focus groups have shown that for about 30% of our students, the tablet we give them is their only device.
Yeah. So, and I think one point to make about that tablet is that it's not just a book reader. It's a full-blown computer-capable tablet.
Absolutely. That's an important thing to point out. When most people think of mobile, they think of Android, iOS, a phone, that sort of thing. But these tablets run the full Windows 8 professional operating system. So they are basically full desktop or laptop operating systems in a tablet form.
Yeah, and that comes as part of it's included with the tablet. It's no extra cost to the student.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, you obviously have a long list of goals for SIU's mobility initiative, and this desire to be able to engage students and improve outcomes given some of the challenges that you face. But as we all know, higher education is not exactly renowned for its flexibility or the speed at which it adopts change. Can you step back a little bit and tell us how you arrived at the goals for your mobile strategy and how you move forward to make that initiative a reality?
Sure. So whenever we started this program, we really did not want this to be a gimmick. We didn't want to just wave a shiny new tablet out there and say, hey, come to SIU and we'll give you a tablet that we really don't care what you use it for.
And so I think the first thing we had to do is really think through the process, right, and really decide what we were going to do and why we were going to do it. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that brainstorming process then.
Absolutely. So our CIO at the time had been brainstorming, trying to come up with different ways to approach the problems that we had at SIU. So he came up with some different options with the tablet program, electronic textbooks and things that we could really get to meet those goals.
Yeah, and I think when we were brainstorming, we went through several different processes and several different ways we were going to do that, but I think it wasn't important that we talked with our internal team to kind of get your confidence and your strategy and your bearing, and so we knew kind of the options that we wanted, but then you've got to go outside at some point and get some outside opinions, and that can be really scary, don't you think? Do you have any good stories about going out and soliciting some of that information? Yeah,
it's just a good idea to go out and talk to anybody that you can, as many people as you can who's willing to listen. You'll hear so many different perspectives that you never considered. For us, that meant talking to our enrollment management groups, our housing areas to get their feedback, the library, of course, academic administrators and faculty. Each of them kind of brought their own concerns, their own perspectives, that sort of thing.
And don't you think that it's important to kind of have people that you know will give you answers from their perspective, but they're not going to scare you to death and not just squash your interest and enthusiasm, and so you can get the rest of your ducks in a row before you go out and talk to the people you really have to make an argument to or convince that you need money, right?
Yeah, early on, you want constructive feedback and constructive criticism, not just somebody telling you why the idea is not going to work.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've included is a slide about the questions that I think you really need to ask yourself. And, you know, first off, wouldn't you say, like, why are we doing this, don't you think?
Yeah, and these questions probably seem like no-brainers, but really if you try to skip this and go directly to the meat of it, then I think you'll have problems later on. It's good to get the answers to these questions down on paper. It keeps the team focused. It also gives you kind of ammo to all of the naysayers out there.
Yeah, and two, I mean, you know, is it something we really need, because that's one argument, or is it a benefit, and who's it a benefit to, and for all kinds of different reasons? I mean, it could be the academic benefit, it could be the publicity benefit to the university, it could be a feather in somebody's cap, you know, all these different benefits, or is it a luxury? Are we doing this because we can? And I think you need to kind of think that through too, don't you think?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And then one of the things that I wanted to bring to the forefront, and I kind of did on the previous slide, was, you know, I think it's really important who you go out and ask, because if you keep your pool of people that you say, hey, is this a great idea? And they say, yeah, it's a great idea. You don't have the full perspective of your organization, I would say. And if you go out and ask people that aren't really positive about your initiative, and you say, is it a great idea? And they say, no, it's a terrible idea. I don't think you have the full picture there. So I think it's important that you go out and get all the perspectives that you can, but also go to people that you know are friendly stakeholders and work with them early on to get their input, but also get that really positive feeling so you can go forward and present a positive case to other people. And these are some of the questions that, you know, we thought were important to ask the friendly stakeholders is, do they want and need this product or project? Are they going to support you? And really, what are they worried about? Let them bring to the table their biggest fears, so you know in the background what the people who have big and true concerns are going to say before you end up in that boat. I think that was really important, and we could have, I think, missed some of that early on. Because how fast did we go? I mean, you talked about we went so fast during the initiative.
Yeah, this is an area where we really, our first year, didn't get to spend enough time. We really should have devoted more time to it. We learned a lot of this as we go, but if you really get this stuff down early on, it'll be very beneficial.
Okay. Well, so you know, you talked about just how vital it is to get buy-in and feedback from the key stakeholders on campus if you're going to succeed. You know, on the other side of things, you need to ensure that you also produce a product and a service that are going to appeal to end users. You know, how do you identify who these users are going to be? How do you get them ready? And how do you give them what they want?
Well, the end users are definitely more than just the students who are receiving the tablet. It really goes all levels of the university. Enrollment management, our recruiters were big end users out there because they needed to know the technology to be able to go out there and recruit with it. On the academic side, of course, we really had two main end user groups. One of them was the core curriculum faculty, GAs and TAs. Since we were giving these to mainly the freshmen, the core curriculum courses, the English, math, our intro to college course, basically in English, were the first ones, or speech communication, sorry. So out of those four different academic areas, we had two of them that were very supportive. One of them was mostly indifferent. They just they thought it was neat but didn't really see the value. And we had one of those groups that was pretty unsupportive, and we never really, at least that first year, got their buy-in to actually use the device in class.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, as the person, and you've done this with me, going out there and demoing these tablets, we go out and make an effort all summer long. We have new student recruitments and orientations, and we show that tablet every day at every student orientation or every recruitment initiative. And it's really to get the students excited about what their college experience is going to be, and to let them know they're going to receive a tablet in the fall. And believe it or not, a lot of them come and they have no idea they're going to get this great piece of technology. And if they do, they kind of think it's too good to be true. They don't believe it. Their high school experience might have been they got a tablet, but they put it back on a cart every day, or they had to give it back at the end of each class or the end of each semester. And, you know, these tablets stay with our students. So when you talk with them about it, it's a very exciting thing for their, you know, initiation to our university, or something that helps them in their decision-making process. And especially for the parents sitting there going, how am I going to manage this, you know, $800 to $1,000 purchase for my student? I know they need it, but really, how are we going to afford it? And especially before they get to school or on the first day of school, not 4 weeks after they start or 6 weeks after they start.
Yeah, during the first year of the project, we had very little control of the non-IT aspects, including the marketing. We were able to do some emails, even some mass mailing, but our timeline was so short, we really didn't have a good chance to market it like we needed to.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I have found, and the recruiting people would say this to me as well, is that they were informed that there would be a tablet and the students would get a tablet, but they didn't understand what the tablet was, or how much money it was going to save the parent, or that it was a full-blown computer and not a book reader, or that it came with the Microsoft products loaded on it, or that they could access ebooks with it. And so they missed a big part of their selling opportunity by not understanding the tablet themselves. And so we started kind of a training program for them this past fall, because everybody realized, oh, we've missed that component. But I think you do have to go out there and educate everybody on the different aspects of the technology you're implementing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, you're talking about what sounds like a lot of laying of groundwork before you move forward. I mean, whether it's you know, getting the key stakeholders involved, pulling in the end users, and identifying who might support you, and then who might throw up a roadblock. You know, once you make that decision to greenlight the project, you know, what do you do next after that? You know, where do you start?
I think you got to go out there and start collecting your facts. There's, like some of the questions we already proposed, who are your end users? Why are you doing the project? Who are the key stakeholders that need to be involved right away? Just many of those things we already discussed.
Yeah, and well, things like how much time is it going to take us to put this into effect, right? I mean, just from the very beginning when you start collecting facts, you know, what resources are we going to need? And that's money, equipment, people, you know, who's available, some investment figures, some return on investment, things like that. You're going to have to go present these at some point in time, or you're going to have to go argue them to somebody at some point in time, and that's two different things. One is, I'm convincing you how great this is going to be, and let me show you why it's going to be great. And the other one is, we would like to do this, let me prove this to you. So I think getting your facts is really important. Yeah,
and some important things on here, I think, are to over-allocate your resources, particularly on the training side and the support side. The last thing you want is a big line, you know, a big support need with not enough technicians to support, and then that's just going to get some early negativity on the project that you don't need.
But you know, that even goes into like resources as far as like what rooms or buildings you're in, because just having an entrance and access exit door, you know, I mean, you've had times when they were going in and out of both, or maybe you can tell about the first year in the superheated basement.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that we had little control the first year. We didn't know what to expect, so they kind of had us stuck in the basement with no air conditioning, where we gave out, we had 2 locations, but in this one we handed out about 1,700 of the 3,000 tablets, so it was very difficult. And one of the things, you obviously your first year, even though there's been others that have gone through this now, have no idea what to expect. So our distribution was scheduled to last 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, before the class started. We had to make some quick decisions on the fly during that first day, and after that first day, a colleague of mine went to a restaurant, sat down and had dinner, and kind of revamped the entire plan. One of the mistakes we made is we overestimated the amount of technical knowledge these new freshmen are going to be coming in with. You know, being older, we assumed that all 18, 19-year-olds were going to be technical experts coming right into school, and that was definitely not the case. At the time, Windows 8 was fairly new. It had only been out 6 months or so, so a lot of the students didn't have that. Now, the second year was much different. Most of them had Windows 8 in their high schools already, so they came in much better.
Well, yeah, what you just described is a very, very significant rollout, and I just want to, in higher education, budgets, particularly in public institutions, have been squeezed pretty hard in recent years. And initiatives like the one you just described are receiving a lot more scrutiny today than maybe they did a few years ago. Everyone wants to see metrics and proof that it's providing bang for the buck. So with a mobile initiative like those, what kind of goals and what kind of metrics can you establish and point to as you sell the concept?
Sure. So slides are advancing a little bit slowly, but the next slide you're going to see shows, here we go, the success metrics that we were aiming for. Enrollment, retention, student success, number of mobile app downloads, adoption of electronic textbooks, and usage of devices. So here comes the part where I'm going to kind of bore you with all of our wonderful statistics. But one of the things, we didn't expect success to come right away. We knew that this was a multi-year initiative, a multi-year plan, but we actually saw results quicker than we thought. During the first year, enrollment was up 13%. That was for the fall 2013. And an additional nearly 5% that next fall 2014. The retention of our freshman to sophomore students, which was the first tablet group, was up or increased 8.4%. Well, we were doing a lot of different things besides this program at the time. One of the big things was targeting a kind of a higher level of student, ones that excelled in high school. We targeted more of them, gave more scholarships. But the biggest increase we saw, which was 12.5%, was in underprepared students. So it was the ones that typically have the most difficult time in college. Our grade distribution, our A's increased 3.7%. C's, D's, and F's decreased by 4.5%, and the average GPA rose from 2.5% or 2.5 to 2.65. And as far as usage, we took a 4-week sample in the middle of the semester, and we found that the tablets were logged onto our network for nearly 1 million total hours just in that month. Of course, we had some opponents that tried to claim that the students were only using the tablets for Netflix, for video games, for Facebook. But we actually had statistics that showed the opposite. They were used in the classrooms nearly 50% more than in the dorms, and usage during Monday through Friday was over 80% greater than on the weekends. So Another thing we track is the mobile application we created. We partnered with another Dell partner called Dub Labs to create a mobile application called Mobile Dog. It's a portal into our student portal where they can look at their grades, they can look at their assignments, that sort of thing. It also attaches to our learning management system. But we had over 20,000 downloads of that mobile application across all three platforms, Windows, Android, and iOS.
Yeah, and one thing that I've noticed, and I'm going to switch a slide here because I don't think I got it clicked the last time, but one thing that I noticed is that the student workers that I have working with me, they get into the trap of they weren't able to get their textbooks, and this is one reason why the retention would fall, because they would get into classes, they couldn't afford their textbooks, they would wait to get their textbooks, and then by the time they got them, they were so far behind they couldn't catch up. One of the reasons why they were waiting on financial aid to, I guess, kick back money to them to go buy their textbooks. And then it ended up where they couldn't get their financial aid for the next semester, and so they ended up leaving the school. And the way we had done this early on was to include freshman books as an ebook in the course, and I think we're going to change that up a little bit, but nonetheless, that's a method of getting books in the students' hands and making sure that they're able to keep up.
Yeah, so what we did there was pretty unique. We implemented a course fee model. So the student would pay an additional, say, $50 or $60, depending on the course, and that paid for that electronic textbook. And the university negotiated and managed those textbook purchases. So that's each student that received a tablet or in that constituency had their textbooks on the first day of class. And since it was a course fee, it was included in tuition, and financial aid covered that cost. The first semester alone, we saved the students over $250 in book fees.
Okay, and one of the things that I also wanted to mention is that Chris has brought a lot of the hard facts to the table, but he's a hard facts and numbers kind of guy, and I'm kind of the intuition, and I think it's this way, or I talk to people and they tell me it's this way. And so I think you also have to really talk to people to get some of the softer indicators of success. And what I mean by that is you go out and you talk to students. How are you using this? How is it working for you? Do you like it? Has it improved, your success in school? Does it improve your enjoyment in school? What do the devices do for you that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise? Talk to parents. What does this mean to you as a parent bringing in a new freshman? Is it important to you? Is it not important to you? Does it make your financial life easier? And I think one of the both sad and kind of funny stories is that we end up where we're giving people or students these wonderful tablets, and yet they haven't learned that they're going to get it. And so the summer before they come to school, their parents go out and buy them the technology that they need, and then they come to orientation and we go, look at this fabulous tablet you're going to get, and they're disappointed because they've already bought one and they're getting one. So I think that goes back to making sure the word gets out and that the students understand the value and just the value of what they are going to receive when they get to your school.
Right, everything that it'll do for them.
What it'll do
prevent
for them.
them from making unnecessary purchases.
Right.
Well, Chris, you talked a little bit about how much the tablets were going to save students in textbook costs, and I'd like to come back and just drill down a little deeper into the cost issue, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how you go about developing an accurate picture of the total price of an initiative like this, and then following up on that, are there costs that need to be tallied that go beyond just pure dollars and cents?
Sure. So you can see up on the slide here, there's several different aspects you got to think of as far as price. Most of these are pretty easy to calculate. one of the things that we had, there was a lot of infrastructure projects that were already in place. At the time we made the decision to do this initiative, we did not even have Wi-Fi in all of our classroom buildings. We had it in most of the dorms. It was pretty covered, but not everywhere else. So we had to really speed up the timeline of those Wi-Fi improvements. We were also planning a migration from Google to Office 365 at Microsoft. We thought that the Windows 8 operating system and the Office 365 would integrate and work well together right up front, so we sped up that initiative as well. So we really didn't include those costs in our total cost package since we already had those in place, but they were definitely part of it.
Yeah, and again, Chris is giving you the way they calculated hard figures, the price of what everything was. But, I'm a person that goes, but what does it really cost? What's the cost of change, or what's the cost of disrupting what we're doing now, or what's the cost of trying to get people to adopt something that they're having difficulty adopting, or they don't want to adopt, or you have to give them a good argument for that? And why, if I've been teaching with a book for 30 years, do I need to do this to help them understand how much better it will be for them or for their students, or that this is the way things are going to go, and let's help you get prepared now. So I think that these soft costs are equally important, and then you've got the cost of just being down while you're transitioning to one thing or another, or the cost of taking staff out of, their normal roles and routines and having them do something else that they're unfamiliar with, that is not within the scope of their job, that isn't within their time during the day, things like that. So I think you have to do both sides of the price-cost picture.
The past couple of slides, looking at those, it could be a little daunting for some, confronting not only financial issues, but you're also confronting issues of change and transition, and it's a challenge without doubt. And I suppose we have to ask ourselves a little bit, what is the ultimate cost of just maintaining the status quo? What is the cost if we do nothing? And having gone through that now yourselves, Chris and Melinda, can you talk a little bit about the financial options that are open to universities who want to move forward with a mobile strategy?
Sure. So mobile initiatives are not cheap, of course, and unless your institution owns a gold mine or is built on an oil well, you're probably going to be struggling or looking for those funds. So we were able to get some small grants from Microsoft, Intel, and even Dell to help pay during that first year. We really looked hard within different areas of our own budget to where we could pull money together for that first year, really just to get things started. And one of the important things to determine, too, is any restrictions that are tied to the source of your funding. For example, here in Illinois, we cannot use state funds and certain types of other on assets that we plan on transferring to students. At least it's difficult. So one of the key things about our program was that we wanted to transfer that tablet to the student after 4 years. Well, we're kind of, because of Illinois procurement law, having to jump through hoops in order to do that. So that's important to talk to your legal group, your procurement, your accounting, property control people to figure out the rules on that.
All right, well, over the last few minutes and few slides, you've talked about the various factors that you need to check off to make sure that you've got your ducks in a row. Let's say that you're committed, you've decided to move forward. What is the best way to develop and roll out your initiative? What's the path you should take?
Well, I think, and you can speak from experience on this, I'm a plan person, and I write plans, and I write them long, and I write them precisely, and I get all my ducks in a row before I do much of anything, because I think that helps you check the components and cost. And then, how am I going to convince these stakeholders in the same way, with the same facts every time to make sure they all got the same message? And then, I think that written plan is your source of confidence, let alone your ability to manage, and maybe you can speak to that first year moving so fast and really having to write that plan as you went, right?
Yeah, the plan is everything, but you also really need to be prepared and have the flexibility to deviate from the plan when necessary. A prime example of that is during the first year, we had partnered with a Dell third party to image the tablets for us. They would ship directly from Dell to this third party who would image them and then ship them to us. Well, the procurement timeline for us, because of kind of how long it took things to us to get processed on our end, we really didn't have enough time. So after about the first week, we realized that imaging plan was never going to go. They could not image them and get them to us fast enough in order for us to be ready to distribute them. So after the first week, I reached out to Dell and had the tablet deliveries rerouted. So instead of going to this third party, they came directly to us. We were able to quickly create our own imaging strategy, and I staffed up with a lot of student workers, and we worked long hours, but we finished the imaging with a few days to spare. Another kind of important, I think, thing to put in the business plan, one of the other slides I already mentioned, was ROI. Universities think of ROI much differently than corporations, where I've spent most of my career. Here, at least on the academic side, they think in terms of students, learning outcomes, etc. But, as an administrator in IT, we know we still have to pay for the project. So at SIU, and I imagine at all or most universities, they've assigned an amount to a student. So they figure if a student comes here and stays 4 years and graduates, they are worth X amount of money. And I know what SIU is assigned. I won't mention it because I'm not sure if it's public knowledge. But we have figured out that if this initiative attracts and keeps 20 new students a year that would not have normally came, then that would pay for the project. So our studies, our surveys, and focus groups showed that of the second year group that we gave tablets to, 30% of them based at least part of their decision to select to come to SIU on the tablet project, with a little over 6 saying it was the primary reason they selected it. So, 6% of 3,000 is obviously much more than 20. So we feel like the initiative is more than paid for itself.
I didn't know that fact, that just 20 students or so made it worthwhile. That's amazing, and that kind of leads into a figure like that in your plan allows you to go talk to those stakeholders for buy-in. I mean, if nothing else, that's a good financial figure to work with. But if you have that written plan, you're on solid ground where you can talk with stakeholders, and then you can talk with decision makers about buy-in, and I am known to switch up just components of the plan to fit exactly who we're talking to, and then you can take that plan and transition it into the actual operations plan, business plan for some other purpose, and then just leaving the tracks allows us to go back year after year and see where we can improve, what we would have done differently, and have a document. If we should both disappear off the face of the earth, they would know what to do next, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like with any project, after it's over, you need to have a lessons learned meeting, and all of those same people that you talk to at the beginning of the project, you need to invite at the end and just figure out, where can we make improvements? What did we do wrong? I mean, one of the biggest gaps we found after the first year was that our training plan was not very good. Like I said earlier, the technical level of expertise that we thought they were coming in with was not even close. So we completely changed around our training plan, and it was quite a bit better in the second year, but honestly, there's still a lot of room for improvement. So that's something that we're looking to change again this year.
And I think we would both agree with this slide. The last one right here is a good partner is hard to beat, right? We'll let Andrew talk about that. But.
Yeah, and not, I'm definitely not employed by Dell here, but But we couldn't have asked for a better partner throughout this. They kind of were side by side with us this whole time, from John Phillips, who's going to talk here in a minute, to our local Dell rep. They were just tremendous to work with. I mean,
Perfect.
Well, that is a, you made the segue to the next section of this presentation extremely easy. Thank you very much. I am going to now pass this on for a few minutes over to our final speaker today, to John Phillips. And John is the director for Dell's global education practice, leading the worldwide strategy for Dell's education services and solutions. His team of experts is focused on innovative technology solutions that are specifically designed to personalize learning for students and to increase efficiency in schools and universities. So, John, we've heard the SIU story. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Dell's approach to higher education?
Well, thank you, Andrew, and good afternoon to the audience. And we appreciate you sitting in to listen to a fantastic story and case study unfolding at Southern Illinois University, and with the great work that you've seen from Chris and Linda and an unmentioned number of others at the institution to really do something bold and brave and innovative, and it truly is. And we've been honored to be part of the story at SIU. And it goes without saying that I think you're seeing the immense amount of learnings that have occurred over the balance of the last 2 years that the SIU team has gathered. It really is a testimony to the approach that's both rigorous in how it was designed, always with the intent that this was not an IT project, but really an impact on student well-being initiative. And the student well-being initiative being, what's it like for a student to be immersed academically in campus life with technology to enable that academic exploration to actually occur better. And with that focus, it required a lot of interdisciplinary work between departments, faculty, advisors, administration, IT, student senate, all of those really to come together. And it really fit our perspective at Dell that this is much more than a discussion about a device. As much as we want to talk about mobility and a tablet, this is really about learning and impacting and creating career-ready individuals. And, our role really is to be a partner, not a vendor, with initiatives like this, meaning that we want to be there every step of the way to understand how we can make the rollout successful, what we can learn from the use of technology, how the faculty can introduce and infuse the technology into the learning sequence. I personally spent some time just walking around the SIU campus just about a year ago, just watching and seeing how students were using their technology on a normal day in the life of a student. And I was impressed to see the variety of interactions occurring, whether it would be work groups with the technology or individuals using their tablet to wayfind around campus, to individuals that actually had got the keyboard and were using the stylus to be productive with the tablet, meaning that this wasn't just a recruiting tool by any means. This really was immersed in the lives of the student, and they were using this device. And it was really making a difference. And from there, what we've learned and kind of our role is really how can we help make that technology accretive in a process like this. And whether it's driving an initiative like a freshman tablet program or it's designing the right use of technology in a BYOD program, whether it's building, helping institutions of higher education at all levels, whether it's a 4-year university or a 2-year community college and private school or a public land-grant institution, we all know that what's important is that technology can make a difference if implemented right, whether it's project-based learning or student-led learning or collaborative rethinking the spaces, rethinking the use of technology. And so we try to work in those endeavors to really to really help with understanding the framework. Of course, there is an importance about how the devices are actually designed that make a difference. We all have consumer devices, and we all use those on a regular basis. And there are many flavors and shapes and sizes. But when we're really talking about the way SIU approached the initiative, they needed to really understand that they had technology that was reliable, technology that was designed for use on campus in enterprise format, meaning that if I ended up getting a class of 30 students with their tablets and they're taking notes and they're using web-based applications, that not only did I have the right wireless access into the buildings, but I actually had the right device that had the right networking cards in them to make a difference, to make a big difference in how the students could access that technology. And if I had just a collection of random consumer devices and they all came into the room at the same time, the professor or the teacher may not feel really integrated with the technology. But if they know kind of what the platform is and they know that they have a reliable response with what they're doing, they're going to be much more willing to innovate with the curriculum and the lesson plan and what they're teaching and what they're lecturing on, knowing exactly what the experience is going to be for the student. And that makes a big difference. Now, with that, it does require thinking through, rethinking through how learning is done with technology. And so we work with the SIU team a lot on the concept of how would faculty embrace this concept? How would they introduce the content that they were working with in the foundation courses into the use of the technology? And that does require a lot of teacher training. And I think Chris mentioned that one of the most powerful things in a project like this, in a program like this, is the learnings. And I think one of the big learnings is we never really do plan enough around integrating the professor, teacher, lecturer experience with technology. And the slide I'm showing here is really more of a broad approach that we really want to work with our partners when they're doing mobility initiatives or they're doing technology initiatives, really from the science of learning. And knowing that if we figure that out, then the technology will actually make a difference. It's not the other way around. We don't just hand out technology and assume that it's going to be great. Even though for the most part students are super cool with technology, they really get it, they use it on a daily basis. Not all do, as Chris pointed out in the research. Some didn't necessarily understand how they could use it really beyond social interaction to really create a difference in their learning and their research and their building their next generation skills. And so there is some training there, both on the student usage side and also on the faculty side. And if we really want to get to this area that you see on the slide, kind of on the right-hand side, we really get to the student-centered classroom where students are really doing things, in lecture and groups, when they're leaving campus and they're in their dorms, that they're able to really use the technology. We need to help facilitate that through professional learning with the staff. So we spent a little bit of time doing that with SIU team. We both learned that more is better. And the context there is really how do we get deeper and do it so we actually create change practice. The idea of just taking lecturing faculty and putting them in a room and lecturing at them around professional development has marginal impact. It's much better when we can actually do change of practice by, watching live instruction and help reflect on that. So Dell spends a lot of time doing that with our customers of all sizes and shapes, really helping with professional learning. And that's kind of really a key to the success. Implementation, thinking through the project, understanding how you'll distribute the technology to the students, making them aware well ahead of time. I think Linda and Chris made a point where they had enrolling freshmen coming on that may or may not have been aware of really what the magnitude of was the mobility program. And they may have went out and if they were lucky and could afford it, maybe they brought some technology to the campus. And the great thing around the SIU program is they're not alienated from using that technology per se. they're just given a really good option and a really well-integrated piece of technology that's designed to be used in their systems. It's not alienating the use of an Android device or an iOS device for, wayfinding or using the Mobile Dog app that was referred to, which is a key integral part of the connection between the curriculum and the systems and the actual use of the tablets. So really thinking through the use cases, and as Linda said, really sitting down with students and teachers and asking, well, how is this working, or how does it feel to use this? What are we missing? What's next? I can tell you that I've watched SIU grow, just within their expertise in this program, and having spent a lot of time with other universities and colleges around the world, I can flat out say that the learnings just in the 2 years that we've been able to gather from SIU have been profound in helping other institutions plan ahead for things they did not otherwise think would occur, or things they did not know to think through. So this learning is really important. And for us, it means being more of a partner than a vendor, listening, understanding, obviously providing technology that works, that's designed for education and use in the classroom, and is affordable and is scalable are important, but complementing it with a professional development and the deployment technique is really the key that makes a difference. And so for us, we do offer professional learning services as part of an option for deployments like this, and we're working with other colleges and universities that are doing similar deployments, either on a grand scale like SIU, or on a programmatic scale such as an executive program or a graduate program or a specific school program where they're dabbling in rolling this out as a pilot and then expanding. So we've got a lot of learnings there really as a partner. And I would be remiss if we didn't save some time for the call for the attendees on there to field any questions that you may have, because again, promoting the idea of listening and learning is really key. So we would love to reflect on this through answering of questions. And to that point, Andrew, I'll turn the call back over to you to moderate any potential Q&A.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you so much, John. And we do have about 8 minutes left for questions, so we'll turn to those immediately. Now, we just heard John. He was talking about how Dell has an approach that is more partnership than they'd like to be seen more as a partner than a vendor. But we do have a question from the audience, and I think I'll turn to Chris on this one. They wanted specifics about the specs of the Dell tablet that was handed out to students on campus. Can you just talk about what what's under the hood on those tablets, please?
Sure. Before I answer that, I want to add something to what John said. He mentioned how important is the learning side of it and the instructor side. So one of the things you can't do is just launch one of these things and kind of sit back and watch what happens. So anybody that kind of follows EDUCAUSE knows that one of the recurring top 10 IT issues of EDUCAUSE is faculty adoption of technology. It's just a problem everywhere, how faculty integrate technology. So we've started a program here, and we may talk about it a little bit more in the next session, but called a Faculty Technology Mentor Program, where we go out and pick different faculty in each department to kind of mentor them. So I won't talk any more about that, but I wanted to raise that point. As far as the specs go, the first year was the Dell Latitude 10 tablet. It was their very first pure tablet format. It ran Windows 8 Professional 8.1, wasn't out yet, and it did run the Intel Quad Atom processor, so it wasn't, a mobile ARM processor or anything like that. It was a full Intel processor. That generation of tablet did not have a keyboard with it, so we gave them the tablet, just the tablet in a protective case, and that had 32 gigs of storage, 2 gigabytes of RAM. The second generation of tablet was the Venue 11 Pro, That one did have two keyboard options. One was a soft keyboard and one was a hard keyboard with the battery. And we went with the soft keyboard. We were able to use our local printer here. We actually put our SIU logo on one side of that keyboard. And just giving them that keyboard really increased the success and the positivity of that tablet. And it had a lot of the same specs, 32 gigs of storage. It had an Intel Atom processor also, but it was a octa-core, I believe. The first one might have been dual and this one quad. I don't remember exactly, but they were very similar. The screens on the Venue 11s were high definition. They were a little bit better as well.
Yeah, and that keyboard was essential, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it was a game changer. That keyboard was.
Yeah, it feels more like an actual computer, I think, with the keyboard than a mobile device you're walking around with. And also when the version that had the docking stations was nice too.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, during the presentation, Chris, you talked about how you were surprised that the 18 and 19-year-old kids arriving on campus were not technically savvy, and that a lot of them really did not have the kind of knowledge that you expected. Can you talk a little bit about how you got students ready to use the devices? What kind of training did you provide? And also, you had also talked a little bit about getting the tablets ready for handout. Can you also talk a little bit about what it takes to get a tablet set up to be handed out to the students? So it's a two-part question. Why don't we start with how you got the students ready?
Okay, and these two questions alone are probably worth their own hour or two long webinars, so I'll try to condense it. Our first year, we thought, and what we did, we brought the student in, gave him the tablet, and gave him about 15 minutes of training in that whole one transaction. We realized that after the fact, of course, that was not the right way to do it, since that expertise. So the second year, we changed venues. We had enough success behind the project then where we kind of got to make our own, choice of venue and that type of deal. But we had them spend an hour-long training session in a large auditorium before they got their tablet that really went through Windows 8 operating system, the tablets, some of our technology we use here, like our student portal, the Mobile Dog application.
How to get your ebooks.
Yeah, how to get to your ebooks, and that type of thing. And that worked pretty well, but it was, I am not an educator or a trainer by trade, so I think it was pretty dry and boring. So we're revamping that again this year to make that even better. I should add, on the first year, we had planned, we had a Dell certified trainer here. Her name was actually Snow White. Who was going to have many sessions, but whenever you leave something like that optional for students, we had, I think, 45 of the 2,800 show up throughout the day for that training.
Yeah, and I think the last, I don't know what iteration that would be, but it was a beautiful thing to see. The training was done well for that many students, but they actually had a separate large room where they brought every student in. They checked them in. They sat them down at a table of, about 6 people, and brought all the tablets up with the student, made sure that the tablets were already charged, got them operating, made sure every tablet was up and running before that student left. And it was a really remarkable thing to see.
Yeah, we made sure that there wasn't a student going to leave with a dead-on-arrival device. Yeah. So we held their hand until they got logged in, they got their Microsoft account created and tied to the device, and then we let them go.
Yeah.
Imaging, I'll talk about real quick. We have a Microsoft Campus license, so we bought the devices from Dell with just the required license on them, and then we put our own Campus license for Windows 8.1 Professional on the device. So and in that imaging process, we used Microsoft SCCM. This year, we're using Microsoft MDT Server to. So it was a 30-minute imaging process from a dock or a flash drive. Next thing you know, all of the applications, Microsoft Office, and all that is on the device.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we have gone through the entire hour, and I'm sorry if we didn't reach all the questions that remained. But that is all the time that we have left today. If we didn't get to your question or you have follow-up questions, as you can see on the screen right now, we've got Chris and Olinda's contact information up there. And also, I would invite you, please, to join us for the second part of this webinar on July 21st. And as we wrap up, I want to thank Olinda Hubbs, Chris Guy, and John Phillips for sharing their expertise with us. That was terrific. And I want to thank Dell for its support and all of you who joined us here today. And one final reminder, we will send out an email to everyone who attended when the recording of the webinar is ready. So thank you again, and this concludes today's webcast. Goodbye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.